we go. So, welcome. I'm really excited about this blab because anyone who knows me knows that intermittent fasting has changed my life. And in particular, the protocol that I follow is Fast 5. And today we have the creator of the Fast 5 intermittent fasting protocol, Dr. Bert, with us. And so I'm really just very excited to hear about, especially about his latest book, which is called Appetite Correction, but we'll get to that later. Um, but let's go ahead and jump right in. We also have Mike Bernos, who is a longtime fast fiver like myself, and to give it some personal perspective, but we're looking forward to hearing Bert's expertise. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Bert. Are you a diet guru?
No, in short, but I don't think of myself as a diet guru. I'm not somebody who thinks that there's one path that everybody should follow, and I'm not going to sit up on top of a mountain and say, you got to do things this way. This is the only way to do things. Along the same kind of analogy as a guru, I might see myself more as a Sherpa, a guide who knows the territory, but helps you find your own way. And that's what people need, is a way to find a way that works for their life to get them where they want to be. So a guide or a Sherpa maybe, but definitely not a guru. And I started Fast 5 back in 2005 with publishing the book, and that was available as a free ebook, and it was also available as a paperback. And since then, it's grown worldwide because people would try it and they would find that it worked for them, and then they would share it. And so it's gone around the world. The Facebook group's over 4,000 people, and a lot of people have taken this simple recipe of eat within a 5-hour window and found some substantial benefit from it. And so it's been 10 years since then. And I've been listening to people as they go through this experience, and I've learned a lot over that 10 years, and that's why it's time to put that new information out there for people to see, and that's why there's a new book out.
And one of the things that I really appreciate about your method is something you just touched on a minute ago, which is that the basic rule is eat within a 5-hour window, but it's very customizable, and you call that a study of one. Can you explain your concept of a study of one?
Sure. The study of one basically says, look at where you are now, and then make a change, and then let enough time of that change go by so that it has time to change to take effect. And for most things in the human body, that's somewhere between 3 weeks and 3 months. But 3 months is plenty for most things. And then at the 3-month point, you check all the information that you can and take a look and say, did this work for me or did it not? And that can be something as simple as checking your waist measurement. You start out, you know where you are, and later on you check it. But I like to add a few things to that, things like blood pressure, which is easy enough to check at home, a couple of things that you can get some help from a doctor checking, like your HSCRP, your HbA1c, which tells you what your blood glucose is running. We have enough information available to us as individuals that we don't need to have everybody follow the same plan. We can find something that works for the individual, and people just use the study of one to find their way and find something that works. And another reason, if I may, about the study of one, that's important, is that there's a lot of misinformation out in the world. And what works for somebody, one person, may not work for another person. So how do you find out if something's going to work for you? How do you know if it's healthy for you? And a lot of people have the impression that fasting is not healthy. And so how do we know? What can we do to look? And so you check things like blood pressure, and the HbA1c and the HSCRP. And if those go in the right direction, you know it's a good thing for you. And if they don't, then you know to try something else. And so the study of one is just individualizing your change and making sure that you're going in the right direction.
And that whole concept, I think, has helped me tremendously, and a whole lot of people. And of course, I'm part of the Facebook group that you spoke about and mentioned earlier. That's about, is it 4,000? It's almost 5,000 members now, I think, right? It's
Yes.
pretty big. And that's one thing that people, mention very frequently. Hey, this is what's working for me, and I'm just sharing. But there's just no one standard way of doing fast five or intermittent fasting. It really is kind of just about learning your own body and how what's going to work best for you, which is to me just a wonderful aspect of it. So of course, beyond the weight loss, there are a number of health benefits beyond just losing weight. Can you touch on those a little bit?
Well, I think the primary feature that most people experience with an intermittent fasting lifestyle, particularly with fast five, is a decrease in inflammation. Many people who have any kind of inflammatory disease, from arthritis to even rheumatoid arthritis or multiple sclerosis, have reported improvements. And so we don't know exactly why it makes it such a substantial benefit, but the overall inflammation level in the body just seems to drop. And I don't have a good explanation of why, but I'm certainly glad to see it. A lot of people have reported blood pressure drops and being able to go off their blood pressure medicines. A lot of type 2 diabetics have seen a reversal of that and able to drop their medicines. So lots of things can improve just by what seems like a very simple and practical change.
Absolutely. Well, and of course, a lot of people, though, practice the fast five method to lose weight, and it's helped me tremendously with that. I've lost 65 pounds to date since beginning on July 1, 2014. So it certainly worked for me. And the beauty of it is that it's just so simple. Eat all your calories in 5 hours, so there's no sense of deprivation and the typical dieting, anxiety, which we all know and probably are all going through, especially at this time of year. It's just not your typical dieting type of mentality that you have to experience. And I know, Mike, you have also had success with Fast Five. Do you want to talk about your experience a little bit?
Of course, I'd be happy to talk about it. I started my Fast Five. I'm coming up on my third anniversary. Would be December 21st. I started after meeting, a little bit of an anecdotal story, after meeting Bert and Judy at a party, and they mentioned it to me. And curiously enough, they were not proselytizers about this. They were just very matter of fact and very extremely modest about what they were working on. And so I just dove right into it. And after, I wanted to do it because I just thought the concept was so sound, in that the idea of losing weight because you literally just eat within a 5-hour period. And the beautiful thing, like you said, Mimi, is you can eat whatever you want to eat. So you didn't have to play all those silly games and trade-offs and this and that and follow this. And if carbs are good for you, if fat's good for you, any of that stuff. Just eat when you wanted to eat. And I thought it was simple enough. And I was hesitant because I had been told all my life I had hypoglycemia. So I was thinking, if I don't eat, I'm going to go through these incredible negative mood changes. My wife's going to divorce me after a week. And actually the opposite happened. My metabolism, after 3 weeks, I found that my metabolism really, really leveled. And as a result of it, I didn't see the weight change. It almost happened instantaneously. I was about 85 pounds. And then it was like almost after 4 weeks, I looked around and I was 171 pounds.
Wow. Awesome.
You know, for about 6 weeks or something. Maybe not that quickly, but somewhere in a 2 or 3 month mark, I got down to like and I've maintained that mark ever since. And I'm a disciple of Fast Five. And I'll just add one other thing very quickly. That I recently went to the doctor for a major checkup, the first one I've had since I've been on Fast Five. And I came back to him after getting the checkup, the blood work, everything, the stress test. He said, Mr. Burnos, he said, you are doing amazingly well. He said, your liver, your kidneys, your blood pressure. And by the way, I did have high blood pressure, and that's come down. And to Bert's point, I'm a musician, and I was developing arthritis in my fingers, which would be terrible for me as a guitarist and a pianist. And since I started doing this, I have no issues with arthritis anymore. So to Bert's point about, Dr. Herring's point about inflammation, that seemed to dissipate as well. So the results of the doctor's office said, you're doing amazingly well. He said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to practice. I'm on a regime of intermittent fasting. He said, oh, you fast? I said, yeah. He looked at me and said, that's not good for you. You should eat.
That encapsulates one of the big lessons learned about Fast Five over the last 10 years, is that the biggest problem isn't somebody being hungry. That people really don't have much of a problem with the schedule. What the real problem is what they hear from other people saying, oh, that's not healthy, and breakfast is
Absolutely
the most important meal of the day. And that's unfortunately not based in science. That's marketing. And we don't really recognize how much of the information that we get is coming from advertisers who are just encouraging more consumption.
Maybe I'd like to add one other thing, is that, as I've gotten older in my life, I've tried to be more of a critical thinker, think for myself and not listening to what everybody else is saying. And the beautiful thing about the Fast Five or Bert's program is that it stands up to all the reasoning. When you critically think about this and look at all the aspects of it, it all makes sense. There's no hocus pocus to it. You don't have to be a scientist for it to make sense to you.
Absolutely. And I have a similar story to yours, Mike, with my son, who's 18. Took him to his last pediatrician visit. And, he's a little overweight. During the summer, I had actually been experimenting with intermittent fasting for him. He has autism too, by the way, so I can kind of control his diet a little bit more than, your average 18-year-old. But we tried intermittent fasting, and he dropped some weight. He was looking good. He seemed to adopt it actually very well. So I checked in with his pediatrician, and I said, can I continue doing this? Is it okay? And he said, I'm not really an advocate. Let me put you in touch with a nutritionist. And so he happened to be with an intern, and the doctor stepped out of the room, and the intern said to me, you know what? I lost 85 pounds with intermittent fasting. Your son's going to be just fine.
Oh, Lord. Great story.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is something that we have to deal with as people who practice this wonderful lifestyle with all these great benefits. Unfortunately, it's still a little bit out on the fringe. And, people ask me all the time when I say I'm doing intermittent fasting. They're like, what? Fasting? It sounds like you're starving yourself. There's all kinds of misconceptions that we, once we open up that window, oh my goodness, all bets are off, and we just start gorging and we're anorexic or bulimic or what have you, all these misconceptions. And the truth is that once you've been fasting for a while, your appetite actually begins to normalize, and you can, even after 19 hours of fasting, I eat actually a relatively small amount of food and feel just fine. Which brings me to the whole concept of appetite correction, which is the phrase that you coined, Bert, to explain that. So can you explain to us a little bit about what appetite correction is?
Sure. Well, over the years of working with Fast Five, initially I was kind of in the scientific mind and saying, oh, well, the insulin's going up, the insulin's going down, and that is making it work. But it occurred to me that what really happens that with Fast 5 that makes it really work is that once you're on the schedule for 3 weeks or so, appetite drops. And when appetite drops, the problem is solved. It's a part of our brains. It's very primitive, and if you look at every animal in the world, it has an appetite center, and humans are the only ones who don't seem to be able to recognize when the appetite center says you've had enough. And so what Fast 5 and intermittent fasting in general seem to be doing is allowing the appetite center to get some control back and be able to tell us when we've had enough to eat. And once it does that, then the rest is autopilot. It's just like the way that we control our heart rate, it's all automatic. We control our breathing, all automatic. We control walking, it's automatic. We don't have to think about it. And the appetite center at the core of our brains is sitting right next there, right next door to the breathing center. It has the same automatic control capability. And so whatever is messing it up, Fast 5 is one of the ways that we can correct that. And once it's functioning again, we're on autopilot. And that's the difference between this and some diet where you're counting calories and just forcing yourself to eat less. You just want less.
Absolutely. I was so amazed by that because I realized it was, when I first started, I would probably eat, a good amount of food, probably more than I needed to. And then I just realized it was all mental. I thought, why am I doing this? Because am I trying to hold myself over for the next 16 hours? That's impossible. I'm not, this piece of steak that I'm eating right now is going to be long gone in 16 hours. So why am I trying to eat more? It's just something that clicked in mentally, and once I kind of got that into that mode, I realized, wow, I'm not even hungry anyway. I'm not overly hungry any more than I should be. So I'm seeing here, Midland Island says, I'm 27, started intermittent fasting. I have more energy than ever and no more um, 2 p.m. feeling. Yes, that afternoon crash feeling
Mm-hmm.
that all of us remember when I know when I used to eat 3 meals a day and snacks in between, and a little midnight snack here and there. I mean, it was just eat and then boom, crash. Just constantly feeling tired, just constantly feeling like I needed a cup of coffee. And
Mm-hmm.
that's gone. I mean, it's just amazing the amount of energy, and you just feel so rejuvenated. So I can definitely um, relate to that energy level. Absolutely.
A lot of people are really not familiar with that feeling, and they can't really believe there's such a thing as appetite correction. And so, because they've been for years battling themselves with trying to find the willpower to say no, but what they're seeing is they're fighting their own brain. And for whatever reason, the brain has said you've got to eat more. And so that's a tough fight, and you can white knuckle your way through it, and maybe get some weight loss that way. But it is tough, and I applaud anybody who's capable of doing it. Until I stumbled across Fast 5, I was gaining weight too and was having trouble saying no. But since then, it's been autopilot, and that's the big shift of appetite correction, and that's getting your body working with you rather than against you, and that's, I think, key for a lifetime of healthy weight maintenance.
Can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned the social aspect of it, which I do agree it's really probably the toughest part of it. I know I've had to field questions from coworkers, from concerned family members, from just so many people saying, "Are you sure this is okay and this is healthy? Aren't you starving yourself?" And also, like I said, the medical community too. Are you seeing though a shift with that? Because it's sounding like it is becoming a little bit more mainstream. I am definitely seeing more blogs about it and more YouTube channels about it and that type of thing. So do you feel that it is shifting in that direction, that it's becoming a little bit more mainstream?
Absolutely. Back in 2005, it was really tough to get anybody to even consider that, first of all, that they could do it. And then if they did do it, that it would actually be beneficial. But a few brave souls tried, and like I said, they told some friends, and it kept on going. And other schedules of intermittent fasting have come out. And as more people get familiar with the concept, the social part of it does get easier. But in the book, one of the things I mentioned is the difficulty of that social aspect, and what we can do to avoid that is just to avoid the term fasting. Intermittent sounds like it's kind of shaky, and fasting sounds like you're going to turn into some thin little wave that's going to blow away in the wind. But if we just talk about an appetite-correcting eating schedule, then that says, yeah, I eat every day, I'm going to eat later, or I've eaten earlier. And it just doesn't get into the fasting part, and it emphasizes that it's appetite correcting. And some people can eat three meals a day and have a perfectly good appetite, and their weight stays the same. And so for them, that's a great appetite correcting eating schedule because their appetite's on target. But for a lot of people, that doesn't work. And so if we refer to the schedule, the daily schedule, or even if it's one of the other forms of intermittent fasting like 5 and 2 or whatever, that's still an appetite correcting eating schedule as long as it gets to the point where you want less to eat. Once it gets into that autopilot mode, it qualifies as an appetite correcting eating schedule. And so I think that we can emphasize that, just never talk about fasting and say, oh, I'm on an appetite correcting eating schedule. And they'll say, okay, fine.
And I have noticed that. I used to, always use the term intermittent fasting, and people right away, I mean, you see the look on their faces like, oh my goodness, or have fun with that. And now I do say, well, I just, when they ask me, well, how did you lose the weight? And I say, well, you know what? I just scheduled my eating. These are the hours I just eat within a 5-hour window. I start scheduling my eating, eat whatever I want. And it definitely does soften it, I have to say. It does. They kind of sort of get it a little bit easier when it's put in those terms. So I agree with you there. Mike, what have you experienced anything, any negative social, like how was your family when you first talked about it, or your friends? What were their feelings about it?
Well, I'm Italian, and so my family worships at the altar of pasta, and so Italians. One of the signs of a good life is you eat well. So there was a little bit of pushback from my family, saying, "You're what? You're fasting? You're not eating?" But eventually they came around to trying it and saw the benefits of it as well. One of the things I wanted to add I read Bert's book, AC, and one of the things he mentions there, he uses an acronym called the 3 MAD. And I'm a real believer in that, because I think that, in addition to the social pressure that we deal with, we really deal with the marketing and psychological pressure of the food industry, which I think has a full-on assault on the people in our country, and it really, I guess, well, at least in our culture, that it's eat. Now Burger King has breakfast all day in case you want to have breakfast at any time, and it's just kind of insane, because from what you read in Bert's book, the whole notion of 3 meals a day is a relatively recent sort of phenomenon, because clearly going back to when man was evolving, he was lucky to eat 1 meal a day. And then I think that was kind of recent as to maybe a couple of 100 years ago. And it's just with the modern food industry and the processing of food, it just created one habitual cycle now, that where, they add more fat, salt, and sugar to make you desire and eat more and become addicted.
Yep.
And I will end just by saying that, the great thing about what do you call it, appetite control, intermittent fasting, it really broke my addiction to food.
Hmm.
Nice.
Same here. I can say that too. I come from a Latin American family, so same thing. Food. We're big on food too. Big on getting around the dinner table and eating a lot and often. And a lot of we've had a lot of questions, but it's sort of tough to deny when they see you getting healthier and healthier. Not only more slender, but just more energy. Your skin looks clear. Your eyes look brighter.
Mhm.
It's tough to deny that. So, and one of the interesting, I thought, points that Bert has made, or concepts that has really stuck with me and that I share with people often, that kind of produces that light bulb aha moment for them, is one of the things you talk about, Bert, is that fat is like the body's refrigerator, storing all of those unused meals, kind of like those the leftovers that we take after having that great dinner out, and we take those leftovers and put them in the refrigerator, and then weeks go by and we say, oh, wait a minute, how come we didn't eat that great pasta from that Italian restaurant? It's still there. Do you want to talk, just kind of just touching on the basics a little bit about that concept, Bert?
Sure. The bottom line is that fat is fuel, and our body, over the course of evolution, have developed this wonderful capability to take any excess that we were able to get and store it where it couldn't be eaten by bugs, it couldn't be stolen from us by some other person, and it's not going to rot. So it keeps it fresh, keeps it available, and it's this amazing way of storing reserve food. And it's certainly easy to carry around. You can carry quite a bit of it around pretty comfortably, and the average person can live 3 to 4 weeks without eating at all because we have that much excess fuel stored, and that's great. But it's only when fat starts to become the largest organ in the body that things start to get out of whack, and it starts to cause trouble. It's really a beautiful organ, a wonderful system, and it's part of what makes our body so resilient and strong. And so we can think of fat as a wonderful thing. It's a great way to store the energy. It protects us, and we just have to work with our bodies to get the right amount of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we touched on a lot of things here, and if people are interested in learning more about your particular protocol of intermittent fasting, which is called the Fast Five Method, and also about getting the book Appetite Correction, where can they find you? Where can they find your book?
Well, they can read more or get the free ebook, the one from 2005, at bertherring.com. And that's HERRING, BERTHERRING.com. And the appetite correction book is available as a Kindle ebook and as a paperback at Amazon.com. And we're going to have it available here in Jacksonville at Art Walk at Chamberlain's. And it's also available, you can order it through independent booksellers.
Awesome. And where would you suggest people get started if if they're kind of interested in this, they want to lose a little weight, they want to get healthier? What would you say is the first step towards exploring the lifestyle?
Well, I think the first step is to just Google it. Google intermittent fasting and look at what people have done with it. And one of the ways that you can see what people have done with it is to come visit the Fast Five group, which you can get to through my website, the one on Facebook, the private group. Like you said, almost 5,000 people who are enjoying this lifestyle and are happy to talk about it and let you know what's real. You don't have to hear it from me. You can see what it's like. I've seen people come on and say, well, I'm this much overweight and I'm this age. And people who are in the group will give them the kind of feedback that applies exactly to them. And so it's not a one size fits all thing. You can get the real story from somebody who's been there on what it's like and whether it works or not. But just exploring it in the first place to get that confidence built up that this is a tool that really works. And once you believe that it's a tool that can really work for you, that gives you what the staying power that you need to get through the adaptation period. We talked about that. It's about 3 weeks. And there can, depending on how you get started, it can be either a very slight adjustment each day, or you can go cold turkey and make the big shift all at once. But it's really not that hard to adjust. But you do have to have the confidence that if you see yourself overeating, you just keep going, keep pushing your body, and you get to the point where the appetite correction clicks in, and then you're on your way.
Absolutely. And I can say that's pretty much what I did. I Googled it. I actually had already been sort of doing it maybe a few days. And then I said, let me look into this and see if there's an actual name for what I'm doing. And that's how I kind of discovered Fast 5. But I also really encourage people to, if you're interested, to join that Facebook group in particular that has such a strong following, because, as you said, people are more than happy to, wherever you're at with intermittent fasting and your interest in Fast 5 in particular, to answer questions. I mean, as basic as they come, or even if you've been doing it a while and maybe have hit a plateau, people are just more than happy to talk about their experience and to help you and to coach you. I've been very, very helped by that, the Fast 5 Facebook group in particular. And I also did start with downloading that free ebook on the Fast 5 method, which really helps a lot in particular also because it gives you a little bit of the science behind it, to maybe feel those questions from family and friends as you're exploring this lifestyle and as you start it, and also as you might hit those the little bumps with that period of adjustment. I know myself, I actually probably, as you said, it may have been 2 or 3 days of adjustment, and I was just fine. And I started at, I was 5'5", 237 pounds, a BMI of 39, a mild case of sleep apnea, and today I'm 65 pounds lighter and never been healthier. So all by just scheduling my eating. So I'm a walking billboard for Fast 5. And I can't say enough about it.
Well, Fast 5 is a great tool, but it is a tool, and it's you who put it to work. You put that effort into it, and just like any tool, until you start to put some of your own energy into it, it won't do a thing. And so for both of you and for people who have had success with Fast 5, they've taken information, turned it into a tool, and that's where it gets to work. Is you put a little bit of effort into it, and you get a lot in return.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it really, people congratulate me a lot and say, wow, you're so strong. And I think to myself, it's really not that hard, folks. Just schedule your eating. You don't have to say, I can't have this, I can't have that. All you have to say is, I can have that, but later. So, it makes it a lot easier. And as we said, especially as we're coming up on the holidays, Thanksgiving, there's a lot of anxiety around, oh my goodness, am I going to be able to stick to my whatever that plan might be? Am I going to gain weight? And then, of course, as we get past toward the end of the year, everybody's starting to think, okay, this is the year I'm going to make it happen. This is the year I'm going to drop those pounds. And there's all kinds of pressure and anxiety around that. Here's a wonderful method that you can utilize that can still help you enjoy all of those family events, all of that great food and camaraderie and friendship and love and happiness, and still be able to stay on track. So it's win-win all the way around. It really is.
It's good stuff.
Absolutely. So any last minute words you want to say, Mike or Bert, before we wrap it up for this first segment?
In addition to being Italian, I'm also from New Orleans.
Double whammy.
Yeah, double whammy, right. And I go home every Thanksgiving. And I have no problem going home Thanksgiving and maintaining my fast 5, because I guess the final point is that my eating schedule is the norm now. And if I were to break that or eat any differently, it's the exception. And when I do it, I feel a little out of sorts if I do it. I feel that, it's not like, oh God, am I happy I can do this? It's not like I feel I'm constantly fighting the current. Now that I'm on it, I feel like I'm with the current. If I would eat against it, that's when I feel like I'm against the current.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I can totally relate to that. It's really, and it's a beautiful thing once you really adopt that lifestyle and those around you are just used to it. It's interesting because when I'm at events now and people know that it's um, you know my window isn't open because I've really consistently stuck to an evening eating window. They'll come to me and say, "Oh, I know you're not eating now, but here you go. You can save this for later. You can
Mm-hmm.
have this. We have, birthday celebration. I cut a little piece of cake for you for later." It's just it's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Uh,
My coworkers at work refer to themselves as day eaters
Uh-huh.
because I'm not a day eater. So it's a beautiful thing, and I hope that the lifestyle really continues to spread and become more mainstream because I think it really can help a whole lot of people. So thank you, Dr. Burt. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for spreading the word and this information to so many people. Thank you, Mike, for joining us
thank
and
you.
giving your input. And with that, we'll wrap it up for this segment. We hope to have another one soon. Same topic, probably a little bit more in depth, maybe. But thank you for all the people who are watching and joining. And until next time.
Thanks, Mimi.